Chick-fil-A has 55 ingredients. 55. And that one fact completely changed how I feed my family. If you're a busy mom feeling totally overwhelmed and confused about food choices, this story is for you. I need to be completely honest with you about something that happened to me probably sometime in mid to late 2021. I was drowning. 3 boys, a demanding job that had me working late some nights of the week, sports schedules that meant we were running from at least 1 to 2 activities every single evening. And I was living on drive-thru meals, telling myself I was making the best choices I could under the circumstances. But here's what I told myself to make it okay. Chick-fil-A was the healthier choice because at least it wasn't McDonald's, right? I felt like I was being responsible while managing this completely insane schedule. The guilt, though, was like eating me alive. I felt like I was failing my kids by not feeding them real meals, and I felt like I was failing myself by not taking better care of my own health. But I was so overwhelmed and convinced I just didn't have time for anything better. You know the feeling when you're standing at the grocery store in the evening after a long day, trying to figure out what you're going to have for dinner, and you're staring at all of the options, and you're like, I don't even know what to buy. That was me every single time. And then I'd get home and my kids would go to bed and I would spend hours just like Googling healthy meals, looking at Pinterest, and just falling down these rabbit holes of conflicting information. One article said that this particular ingredient was terrible, and another, it was okay, right? Like one expert was saying organic everything, another says it doesn't matter. And I would see other moms posting on social media about their beautiful homemade olive bread, right? The perfectly arranged bento boxes and kids happily eating their vegetables. And I'm over here trying to figure out what we're having for dinner, throwing pasta on a plate and feeling like the worst mom in the world. And the information overwhelm was paralyzing. I'd bookmark recipe after recipe after recipe. I would pin healthy meal ideas. I would buy cookbooks, and I'd still end up in the drive-thru because I was too exhausted and confused to even know where to start. The fear of spending money on expensive, healthy food that would just end up rotting in my fridge because my kids wouldn't touch it. How many times had I bought organic this or something else only to throw it away a week later? Then one day I'm scrolling through social media in that familiar state of overwhelm, and I see this post from the Food Babe that literally stopped me cold. And it was the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich has 55 ingredients. 55. And what I thought was just chicken and maybe some breading, right? I sat there staring at my phone, and it was like someone had punched me in the gut. I started reading through all of that information, right? Sodium phosphates, calcium propionate, TBHQ, and I couldn't even pronounce half of those words. And this was my go-to healthy option. The thing that I was choosing because I thought I was making a better choice, and I really had absolutely no idea what I was feeding my family. I felt so stupid, so completely fooled. Like, how had I convinced myself that this was okay? But here's what made it even worse. Knowing the truth and actually having the time and knowledge to do something about it, those felt like 2 completely different universes. I still had that demanding job. I still had those crazy schedules, and I still had 0 time for myself, let alone time to become some sort of meal prepping, label reading superhero, and the drive-thru still felt like my only option. What was I supposed to do? Spend 3 hours every Sunday meal prepping when I was already drowning in everything else? Learn to cook from scratch when I could barely keep up with laundry? And now the guilt was even worse. Before, I didn't know any better. Now I knew what I was doing and it wasn't great, but I felt completely trapped by my circumstances. I remember one evening we were driving between 2 different sports practices and the kids were hungry and getting cranky. And there I was sitting in the Chick-fil-A drive-thru again. And I was feeling completely defeated. Like I was just failing at this whole mom thing. Like there were other moms that had figured out some secret that I was missing. Like I was the only mom who couldn't get her act together when it came to feeding her family. I realized something had to give, and it couldn't be my health and my family's health. But I also couldn't keep living in this state of overwhelming guilt. So I made a decision. I was going to figure this out, but I was going to do it in a way that actually worked for our real life, not some Pinterest perfect fantasy, because I didn't have time for that. So I started small, and I mean really small, because I had learned already that trying to overhaul everything at once just led me to giving up and feeling even worse about myself. So the first thing I did, one serving of fruit or vegetables with every after school snack. That's it. Instead of just throwing goldfish crackers at them when they walked in the door, I would add apple slices or baby carrots. Then I tackled more vegetables at dinner because sometimes we would get some vegetables and other times it was nothing, right? So even if that was just some sort of frozen vegetable that was put on the plate, at least we were eating vegetables. And then I learned to read labels. And I mean, actually read the labels, not just glance at calories. I developed little tricks to decode what mattered and what didn't. And weekend meal prep became a lifeline. 30 minutes on Sunday, I would make protein pancakes that I could freeze and make for the kids all week. Slowly, I started figuring out real food solutions that my kids would actually eat and that I could actually manage. So you're probably sitting here right now thinking, okay, but how? How did you actually figure all this out without losing your mind? I get it. Because I asked those exact same questions, and it's why I created a free challenge called 5 Days to Confident Food Choices. It's everything I wish someone had given me when I was standing in that grocery store feeling completely overwhelmed. Day one, I teach you about my quick label decoder trick so that you can understand what you're actually looking at without needing a chemistry degree. And we talk about easy snacks that don't require meal prep, real food dinners that actually work with your busy schedules, and breakfast swaps that take the same amount of time but give you better nutrition. And toward the end, I walk you through creating a family meal plan that actually sticks. It's not about perfection, but it is about progress. And it's about going from being overwhelmed and confused to confident with your food choices, even in your crazy busy life. So now, is our family's food journey perfect? Absolutely not. My boys, especially my teens, still have very strong opinions about food. There's still nights when we end up with takeout because life happened. And I still buy store-bought muffins sometimes. But here's what completely changed. I went from drive-through desperation and constant guilt to making confident food choices that actually work with our real life. I stopped feeling like a failure every time I made a less than perfect choice, and I stopped comparing our Tuesday night dinners to somebody else's Instagram post. I started feeling proud of the progress that we were making instead of feeling guilty about not being perfect. The transformation wasn't just about food. It was about proving to myself that I could prioritize my health and my family's health and maintain my sanity. That I didn't have to choose between being a good mom and managing everything else on my plate. So if you're watching this and you're feeling trapped by drive-through dinners, overwhelmed by conflicting nutrition advice, or guilty about your food choices, I see you because I was you. And you don't need to become a meal prep influencer overnight. You don't need to throw everything in your pantry. You just need someone to show you where to start and how to make it work with your actual life. So grab my 5 Days to Confident Food Choices challenge. The link is below this video, and let me walk you through exactly how I went from overwhelmed to confident, one small step at a time. And leave me a comment. What's the one food choice that has been making you feel guilty lately? I promise you're not alone in this.